Next on Unsolved Mysteries.
Give me some backup now!
A young deputy nearly loses his life when a routine traffic stop turns into a violent shootout. Can a miracle save a Minnesota woman nearly frozen to death? In a series of daring armored car heists, a gang of thieves steals nearly $2 million. And a suspected crime boss vanishes in the waters of the Colorado River. Was it an accident or a hoax? These are stories you won't want to miss. I'm Dennis Farina, and this is Unsolved Mysteries. Our next story is about a man who claims he's part of a paramilitary group devoted to protecting the U.S. Constitution. Now, all of this would be well and good, except he uses it to justify his terrorist campaign. Bell County, Kentucky. On a quiet Sunday evening in October, Sheriff's Deputy Scott Elder was taking a break during a routine patrol. And then a pickup truck sped by with no taillights. Deputy Elder was about to have a night on the job that he would never forget.
When I came up behind him, he was driving fine. The only thing that I directed my attention to were the no taillights. I caught up with it, and it was a camouflage truck, Kentucky militia on the back. I had no idea what that was. That's when I made the traffic stop.
Good evening, sir.
Evening.
I'm Deputy Elder with the Bell County Sheriff's Office.
Hey, Deputy Elder.
It all seemed routine. The driver was friendly, and he agreed to take care of the problem right away.
I'll just go down the road here and get that fixed. Thank you for telling me about that.
Sir,
But then, everything changed.
however, I do need to see your driver's license to make sure it's valid.
No, you don't need to see my license.
Yes, sir, I do.
And the reason you don't need to see it is because I'm a member of the Kentucky State Militia.
He started getting very agitated. He started turning real red. He started yelling.
Matter of fact, I get my powers derived.
That's when I caught the glimpse of a pistol magazine to the window.
In the vehicle?
Yes, I have weapons in the vehicle.
Sir,
Do you
for
have
my
any weapons in your
safety,
vehicle?
sir,
Do you have any weapons
put your
in your
hands
vehicle?
for my safety.
I
Put
don't
your
need
hands
to put
where
my
I can,
hands
sir,
anywhere.
put your hands where I
Don't
can
take
see
that
them.
gun out.
I kept screaming at him, step out of the truck, step out of the truck. And that's when he threw it in drive and he took off. I just couldn't believe this was going on, you know. It's a Sunday, it's supposed to be dead shift, you know. And not anymore.
The two vehicles were locked in a dangerous high-speed chase, and the predator suddenly became the prey.
He turned a U-turn and came back at the cruiser. When he stops, I backed my cruiser up. I swerved and missed him, and he whipped it back around, and he was chasing me at that point in time. And I was on the radio, and I was telling dispatch, I said, he's chasing me.
Give me some backup now!
I said, I don't know what he's trying to do. I said, this guy's crazy, but he's chasing me.
The pursuit escalated from dangerous to violent.
Dispatch, I need backup now!
And then, with bullets flying and his life on the line, Deputy Elder turned the tables on his pursuer. The deputy was now bearing down on the truck when the driver suddenly slammed on his brakes and jumped from the vehicle.
Come on! Come on, you want some of this?
Get your hands up
Don't
now!
you mess with me, boy!
Do it now!
The gunman fired more than 30 rounds and then peeled off down the highway. Elder fired back, but the truck disappeared into the night.
I was shaking. I didn't know whether to cry or scream, get mad. You know, I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to think, you know, what the hell happened.
The next morning, authorities discovered the gunman's abandoned vehicle and traced it to 55-year-old Stephen Howard Anderson. In the back of the truck, deputies found enough weapons and ammo to equip a small army.
There were 6 pipe bombs he found in the cab of the vehicle. There was a semi-automatic rifle, over 9,000 rounds of ammunition of various calibers found in the back of the vehicle in a camper, and there was other survival gear and clothing and some food as well.
I need backup now! He's shooting at me!
Given the mindset that we believe Stephen Anderson has, when you see that type of weaponry, it poses a serious threat to property and people.
Police confirmed that Stephen Anderson was connected to a civilian paramilitary organization called the Kentucky State Militia. According to law enforcement officials, some members can be fanatical and dangerous. Even when compared to the group's more extreme members, Stephen Anderson was considered too radical. In fact, a short time before the shootout, Anderson was actually booted out of the militia.
His agenda would be to do the second revolution now. In our opinion, it's not time. Legislative process in Kentucky still works. When that system ceases to function, then it's time for a revolution.
Was Stephen Anderson preparing to launch his own private war? It certainly appeared that way, especially when a search of Anderson's property turned up another huge stockpile of weapons. More pipe bombs, grenades, machine guns, and approximately 12,000 rounds of ammunition. Agents also found a low-powered ham radio transmitter used by Anderson to broadcast hate-filled rants against the government.
I can see it now. Joe Patriot's driving down the road.
Just 5 days before the shootout, authorities say that Anderson had play-acted a scene that seemed like a rehearsal for the actual encounter.
I need to see your national ID card now and get you to step out of the vehicle. But sir, that violates the Constitution. I don't care about no Constitution. I said give me your national ID card. Well, okay, buddy. I'll give you my national ID card. Scan this. Have a nice day, officer.
I had no idea that he had done that, you know. There's no doubt in my mind now that he had it planned.
Do you have any weapons in the vehicle?
Yes, I have weapons.
Any police officer that come in contact with him, that's what was going to happen. There was going to be a shootout, no matter what.
Authorities filed charges against Stephen Anderson, including attempted murder and violation of federal laws regarding explosives.
It's quite possible that when Stephen Anderson abandoned his vehicle, he may have hid in the woods for a period of time and either sought out or received help from people in the area.
Update. Stephen Anderson has been captured. Agents received the tip that he was living in the mountains in North Carolina. Anderson was arrested and pled guilty to 7 counts of possessing firearms. As part of his plea, he agreed to turn over his entire stockpile of weapons to the government. A judge sentenced Anderson to 15 years in prison. He served his time and has been released. Next, a Minnesota woman frozen alive is moments from death unless a miracle can save her. And later, a rapist who terrorized a small college town is finally behind bars. Previously, we told you the story of a serial rapist on the loose at Texas A&M University. The rapist looked just like any other student out for an evening jog. But as he approached his victims, his casual demeanor turned violent.
The suspect kept that knife within her sight, and she had every indication at that point that he would use that knife on her.
University police released a composite sketch and a character profile of the suspect, but the rapist remained at large. Several months later, another Texas A&M student was raped. As in the first, the attacker used a knife.
From nowhere, she said, a knife appeared and was placed against her throat. He threatened her. He told her that if she screamed, he was going to kill her, and then took her to the location that he had already prepared.
This composite was based on the second victim's description. A comparison with the first drawing increased investigators' concerns that a serial rapist was stalking female students. The critical break in the case came from the first victim herself when she stopped for groceries at a local market.
Howdy, how you doing? Hey!
Let go! This is a knife! Do what I say, and I won't hurt you.
Can I see your driver's license, please? We're gonna go for a little walk.
The young woman was convinced that she was face to face with the man who had raped her.
Hey! You forgot something.
Detective Villarreal, this is Detective Lindholm with the Texas A&M University Police Department.
The clerk was named Don Richard Davis, Jr., a student at Texas A&M University, scheduled to graduate in 3 weeks.
Get your picture for a photo, Lynn.
Sure.
When this photograph of Davis was shown to the second victim, she too identified him as the rapist.
His demeanor was very timid, very sheepish. But we started to really study that picture and look at him. The eyes ended up reflecting a very thoughtful, aware, focused individual.
DNA tests confirmed with 90% certainty that Davis was the attacker.
Out of all the white males in the world, he was a 1 in 5 million on one incident and a 1 in 5 billion in the other.
Don Richard Davis Jr. was charged with aggravated sexual assault and released on bail. 6 days later, Davis disappeared. Update. Cleveland, Ohio. A routine traffic violation would mark the end of the road for Don Richard Davis.
Don Davis got stopped on a traffic stop one day, and when they rolled his fingerprints at that point in time, that's when it connected up as a hit with Don Davis, and then that information just kind of mushroomed from there.
Don Richard Davis Jr. was brought back to Texas to stand trial for the rapes of the two women. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison.
With the conviction of Mr. Davis, justice has been served, and I know for a fact that the two victims that we had are extremely relieved. They feel better, and I think they're probably sleeping a lot better now, because Mr. Davis will no longer be out on the streets.
Lyngby, Minnesota. One bitterly cold morning, a man opened his back door to a horrible sight. His 19-year-old neighbor, Gene Hilliard, lay in the snow, literally frozen solid. The night before, Gene's car ran off the road and got stuck in the snow. Gene was desperately trying to reach her neighbor's house. The temperature was 25 below zero. At the small local hospital, the nursing staff was stunned. They'd seen hundreds of frostbite cases, but they'd never seen anything like this.
She was so cold, it was like reaching into a freezer. Like picking out a frozen stick of wood. Her face was absolutely white, just this ashen death look.
She was severely frostbitten. None of her limbs would bend or move, and really things looked very grim.
She's got a respiration of 3, heart rate 10.
10?
10 minutes ago.
We did hook her up to the monitor, and we got this agonal rhythm, like one beat. It was just like one and nothing. So then, too, we knew that we had something. But, that's a death rhythm.
It's over her.
When a person gets frostbite, what we're basically talking about is freezing of the limbs. That actually means ice crystals forming in the cells, and in so doing, they destroy many of the cells of the body. After the hands and feet maybe start the initial stages of frostbite, and the core temperature of the body drops. The heart, the lungs, the internal organs of the abdomen, the brain, when those start to cool, it becomes more and more difficult for them to perform their functions until finally they stop. At that point, the patient would more than likely die.
The hospital staff was doing everything that it could. But Rosie Erickson, a hospital office worker, worried that it wouldn't be enough. Rosie knew that Jean needed a miracle.
I called the pastor of our church, and I stated simply that Jean Hilliard from the Lyngby area was brought into the hospital in a frozen condition, very critical, and that she needed prayer.
Hello, Patty.
With the
This is
blessings of
Pastor
the
Erickson.
family, the word went out. A prayer chain started at about 9 that morning, and within 10 minutes, more than 30 people were praying for Jean.
Yeah, I have a prayer request that we need to pass on right away.
The odds against Jean were enormous. But 2 hours later, Jean suddenly went into violent convulsions. It was a good sign, but the danger was far from over. Doctors worried that even if Jean regained consciousness, she might have serious brain damage. And the frostbite was so severe that amputating Jean's legs seemed inevitable.
She just didn't look real. It was like, this can't be.
Jeannie, I'm sorry. I've got to ask you a couple
I woke up in the hospital about noon. Things were kind of hazy, and people were asking me questions as to who I am and things like that. And I couldn't figure out why they were talking to me that way or why they were treating me that way. And it's, of course I knew these people. Of course I knew who I was. I mean, what's the big deal?
Hi, honey.
When Jeannie first came to and we knew that she was going to live, it was an extreme relief. But what was more miraculous to me was her legs recovering. Every time we lifted the sheet, we could see the white just moving down. The black was disappearing little by little, and to me, I still think that was just unbelievable.
Jean spent 49 days in the hospital. In defiance of everything her doctors knew about frostbite, she recovered completely.
It was enough that she survived. That was a wonderful enough thing. But to have this added gain of not losing any fingers or toes, and in fact just having what I guess would be minor scars, this is remarkable.
15 years later, Jean still lives in Minnesota and is the mother of 3 children. Jean credits her survival and astonishing recovery not only to the doctors and nurses who cared for her, but also to the friends and neighbors who prayed for her.
There were other people across the nation that same night that were found in the same condition I was in, and they died. I just think without all those people that I might not have survived.
Coming up, a suspected crime boss disappears during a fishing trip. A tragic accident or a scam to avoid arrest. And next, a 60-second robbery that nets the thieves nearly $1 million. Eden Prairie, Minnesota. An ordinary afternoon pickup by an armored car company is about to become anything but. At 1 p.m., the guards suddenly find themselves under siege by a band of thieves. Thieves with a plan to get rich in less than 60 seconds.
Come over and shoot!
The guard grabbed one of the robbers' guns, but was quickly overpowered.
These guys seemed to move very smoothly, and they didn't seem to be in a hurry or panicky or nothing. They were very smooth.
Immediately, another vehicle pulled up in front of the armored car, blocking its escape. A fourth robber then placed what looked like a bomb on the truck's hood.
It's hot!
In just under a minute, the robbers had stolen close to $1 million and then vanished without a trace.
It seemed like kind of a commando type thing, like these people had been well trained. These robbers come very heavily armed and ready to shoot.
Using a rope and a pulley rig, the bomb squad carefully removed the device from the hood. X-rays reveal that the bomb was a fake, a clever tactic to buy even more time. The FBI linked the fake bomb to an identical device used in a Baltimore, Maryland robbery 3 years earlier. In that operation, the same gang of thieves made off with over $600,000. Many thought the gang would quit while they were more than $1 million ahead. But 1 year later, they struck again. Just miles from the scene of the last robbery, in the town of Burnsville, Minnesota, a Brinks guard was waiting in the truck while his partner made a cash pickup at a local bank.
On the ground, right now.
Okay.
On the ground.
Okay.
As I turned around, I see this van that was coming up in front of me. I hit the van real hard, I knew that. I turned my siren on, shots went off, scared the living daylights out of me. I made a circle to come around so I could see what was going on. I could see my partner on the ground. All those shots that were going on, I thought they'd killed him.
Fortunately, the guard was not injured.
At the time, I thought, I got these guys right where I want them. I just rammed it as hard as I could.
It's a real lucky situation that some innocent bystander wasn't killed, because there were a number of shots fired and there were a number of shoppers passing and bank customers passing right by the area.
The robbers abandoned their car behind a nearby shopping center and fled on foot. The FBI believes they may have had another vehicle parked nearby. Authorities brought in tracking dogs and set up roadblocks, but the gang had once again made a clean getaway. The following morning, police found one of the stolen getaway cars less than a mile from the bank. It contained no evidence that could identify the robbers. There are at least 4 members of the gang, and authorities have created composites of 3 of the men. The first suspect is about 6 feet tall. He has gray or white hair and may wear a false beard the same color. Suspect number 2 is white, about 6 feet, and weighs between 170 and 180 pounds. The third suspect is a white male, about 5 feet 9, with dark hair and a dark mustache.
These individuals could be living anywhere in the United States, and we would like to get information from anybody who has any indication that people that may be able to perpetrate this type of crime have come into a lot of money, or that had the capability to commit these robberies in any one of these 3 cities.
If you have any information that might help solve this case, log on to unsolved.com. Coming up, an alleged crime boss is accused of faking his own death. And later, police suspect that a workplace dispute may have led to cold-blooded murder. In and around Phoenix, Arizona, Bob Arcieri was known as a fun-loving family man who made friends easily. He was also known as an ambitious businessman who can get you almost anything for a price.
The first time I met Bob Arcieri was I went down and bought a camper shell from him. And then he needed some work done, I needed things done, and we just traded on and off, and our relationship just kind of rolled from there.
Bill Reddick and his wife Janet hit it off with Bob and his wife right from the start.
Hey, check out these little guys. Oh, aren't those nice? That's our Kachina collection. Got some more.
Bob was fascinated by Bill's collection of rare Native American Kachina dolls worth $75,000.
You know, I also collect guns. I've got an 1881 Smith & Wesson. Would you like to see it? Oh, I'd love to see that. I'll go get it. Great.
Bill also showed off his priceless antique guns, which he kept in a safe in his bedroom.
I had opened up my safe where they were at, and then I turned around and looked, and he's right behind me.
Oh. Oh, hey.
It seemed unordinary to me because I was going to get him out. He was very calm and very cool about the whole issue. He didn't seem to be interested in anything. He just seemed to be sort of like nonchalant.
On a night when Bill Reddick was out of town on business, his wife Janet came home from work to find the house had been ransacked.
I went to leave to get out of the house. From that point on, my memory is kind of black until I woke up in the hospital a couple days later.
With Janet unconscious, the thieves made off with the Reddick's entire collection of Kachina dolls, all of Bill's antique guns, and Janet's jewelry. Total value, more than $200,000. The burglars had struck Janet 5 times in the head with a ball-peen hammer. She recovered, but only after major surgery and months of rehabilitation.
Honey, would you...
A concerned Bob Arcieri stopped by to see how Janet was doing.
You didn't get a chance to see anybody, huh?
I didn't see anything. I don't
He said to us that wished that he could help us find the guy, and if he did, he'd be glad to kill him for us.
Almost 2 years later, a contract killer reported to police that Bob Arcieri was the mastermind behind a series of local robberies.
There's 3 things that Bob was involved in. He was involved in drugs, he was involved in murder, and he was involved in robbery.
The informant said that the targets were Arcieri's own friends and business associates.
Would have dinner with these guys, have them over to their house, play golf with them, and then maybe 2-3 years down the road, he'd set them up.
We were initially a little skeptical of this information. However, as we began to investigate the crimes, this subject's story seemed very credible.
The Phoenix police arranged for the informant to secretly tape record a conversation with Arcieri.
The meeting took place in a parking lot. I was able to view the meeting through binoculars from some distance away.
In the exchange, Arcieri canceled an alleged hit he had hired the informant to carry out.
Come on, Bob, it's on, it's off. I've been spending a lot of time on this thing. Let's get it going.
After we retrieved the recording device from him and listened to what was being said, it left little doubt that Arcieri was in fact involved in the crimes. I brought some property with me.
The informant gave Detective Flick several items he said were stolen by the Arcieri gang.
I never thought I'd see these again.
Some of the valuables belonged to Janet Riddick. Robert Arcieri was charged with 7 felony counts, including conspiracy to commit murder. But those charges were eventually dropped. Authorities gambled that they can build an even bigger case against Arcieri. Bob Arcieri was set free, and he went on a fishing trip with his nephew and 2 friends. They chose a spot on the Colorado River known as Lee's Ferry.
Bob called me and he said he'd been exonerated and he wanted to celebrate. And that's why we went to Lee's Ferry, was to kind of celebrate that being all over and done with.
Ray Brown says that as darkness fell on the first day of the trip, Arcieri began to complain about chest pains.
Yeah, I'm gonna be fine. Okay, I'm gonna go get it.
At the dock, Brown claims Arcieri was the last man to disembark. His nephew had to help him from the boat. The other man on the fishing trip has asked not to be identified.
I walked up the dock and left the nephew and Bob standing there. And I went to the bathroom, and when I was leaving, I heard a splash down by the dock.
What happened? What's wrong? What's wrong? In the water. Who did? Uncle Bob.
Apparently, Arcieri had fallen into the dark water and vanished.
I don't know. Where? In the water somewhere.
The water was over a man's head at the boat dock. And I backed the truck up and shined the lights out on the river, and we could see nothing. And I knew he must be drowned.
In the area where Arcieri disappeared, the river broadens out almost into a lake. Rescuers were concerned that he may have floated 1/2 mile downstream towards a set of rapids. But an intense 4-day search turned up no trace of Bob Arcieri.
I feel that if he were in that upper section of the river in the clear water, there's a very high likelihood that we would have seen him in that area and he would have been found.
Did Bob Arcieri really suffer a heart attack and drown? Or was the entire episode a hoax to avoid future prosecution?
Bob probably didn't even get his feet wet. For all I know, the guys were willing to throw a rock overboard. No, he's not dead.
It's my belief that knowing that he was looking at spending the rest of his life behind bars resulted in him making some hard choices, and that was either facing them or feigning his death. I believe he took the latter. Every indication I have is that he did not drown, and he is alive today.
Update. There are new developments in this case. Here's one of our staff with details.
After 24 years on the lam, Robert Arcieri has been captured. Arcieri was spotted by a tipster living in Palm Springs, California. And on June 1st, 2011, he was arrested at his home there. According to authorities, Arcieri had started a new life under the name Frank Reynolds and worked in the construction industry in Washington State until retiring to Palm Springs. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Coming up, a quiet night at home is turned into an ordeal of survival for a married couple. Powhatan, Kansas. In a small farmhouse on the edge of the Kickapoo Indian Reservation, Jody Bordeaux and her husband Sean had been receiving disturbing, anonymous phone calls for weeks.
Hello? Hello?
Jody was also sure someone was lurking in their yard.
One night she had heard noises outside of the house, and I tried to convince her that it was probably a raccoon or a coyote or something, and that she really didn't have nothing to be afraid of.
But the danger Jody sensed was not only real, it would ultimately lead to her murder. As yet, no charges have been filed in the killing of Jody Bordeaux. Authorities are hoping that someone watching can help bring a cold-blooded murderer to justice. Sean and Jody were part of a management team hired to run the Golden Eagle, the first Indian-owned casino in the area. This casino had huge potential for the tribe, with annual earnings in the millions and job opportunities for the local tribes people. Sean and Jody were also looking forward to the birth of their first child, a girl.
She was absolutely ecstatic over this pregnancy, and her happiness was something that spilled over into her friends and her acquaintances, and everybody were just pretty much felt happy for her and with her.
Everything seemed to be going Jody's way, even at work. She had been promoted to staff supervisor of the slot machine department.
Jody was a little fireball. She put a lot of energy, a lot of effort into everything she did. To see her in the casino, you would think she was running most things. And even that perception, it can draw jealousy and envy from some of the people who may be in the same position, saying, how does she get all the attention?
Jody believed that some of the staff were resentful of her new position.
Good morning.
Heard your grandmother died.
One employee even accused her of making up excuses to get extra time off.
What is that supposed to mean?
Our busiest weekend? Good time to have to go out to a funeral.
There's some competitiveness when it comes to these jobs. And having two people coming from other, one from another tribe and one from no tribe at all, and going into high positions in the casino, I'm sure rubbed a lot of people on the Kickapoo Reservation the wrong way.
According to Sean, Jody frequently reported the same employee for his bad attitude and tardiness.
He kept coming back with more problems for her. And eventually, she had to take a little bit more of a hard line on him and start writing him up and holding him to the letter of the law as our policies and procedures mandated.
We're here to talk about some reports we have about you being...
The employee was brought before the Casino Management Board for review. He was reprimanded and put on probation.
I don't even know why some of those reports were even written. It's like everybody else gets away with everything when it comes to her, but...
But the problems continued, and the employee was eventually fired. A few weeks later, the employee brought a grievance against Jody to the tribal council.
There's a meeting this afternoon. You need to attend.
Sean saw it as an act of vengeance.
Due to the great cost and time of these procedures...
The complaint cost Jody her job. She spent the next month petitioning the tribal council to rehire her.
Think of anything else I can add?
Jody was hoping that she would be rehired at the Golden Eagle, and that was a discussion that her and I had participated in, and there was a possibility that she would have come back to work at the Golden Eagle.
Once news spread that Jody might return to the casino, the anonymous phone calls began.
Hello?
Never in my wildest dreams did I think they had anything to do with having to worry for our lives. I had no idea that we were being threatened.
Did you find a car seat?
Late on November 21st, Sean and Jody were spending a quiet night at home when a noise startled the Bordeaux dog.
The next thing I hear is a popping noise, kind of over and behind my head. Jody got to the bedroom and she turned to see if I was okay. And one bullet went into the bedroom, and that one bullet struck her in the head.
Jody? Jody?
Sean had no doubt that Jody was dead. He quickly dialed 911, hoping to save his unborn baby. It was too late.
Jody didn't suffer. She died instantly. But my baby suffered. She's relying on Mom. And next thing you know, there's no Mom. And she dies a slow death. That really hurts.
Despite an exhaustive investigation, Jody Bordeaux's killer remains at large.
We've gone from a point where just about everyone was a possible suspect to a point where we're focusing on an individual or group of individuals that may have been responsible for this. These individuals were not strangers to Jody Bordeaux. Individuals knew her, and they would have had an axe to grind with her due to employment issues.
I believe that part of the problem is just that there's not a lot of trust with Indian people and non-Indian law enforcement. And that's probably part of the problem with investigations that are taking place. There's been serious question about retribution of anybody coming forward.
If there are members of the Kickapoo tribe that have any information that would help us solve this, they have a responsibility to their fellow tribal members, to their fellow community members to come forward. This is an unsolved crime here on our lands. Let's do something about it.
I go through each day thinking of my family, thinking of what could be, thinking of my little girl. And so the most difficult thing is just watching my life go by without a family.
If you can help solve the murder of Jody Bordeaux or have information on any of the other cases presented tonight, log on to unsolved.com.